Welcome to Essential 123 QuickBooks Tutorials. My name is Jamie Hudson. I'm a certified QuickBooks Advanced Pro Advisor and owner of Essential123.com. We hope you enjoy today's tutorial and visit us at Essential123.com often, as we do update our tutorials regularly. Thank you. For today's tutorial, I'd like to go over a couple of mistakes that a CPA friend of mine recently asked me about. She said, why is it that when I go to the payroll center and look at the scheduled payroll liabilities, there's a balance, but when I look at the chart of accounts or look at the general ledger, there's a zero balance? So I want to highlight how this error happens, so if you find yourself doing these steps, you realize that it's not the best way to do it. Then I'm going to tell you how to fix the error in case you have done this, and then how to do it correctly from here on out. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go up to List and go to Chart of Accounts in the gray menu bar. And we're going to take a look at our payroll liabilities. And that's in the Other Current Liabilities section. And in this case, our sample company file has 3 different types of payroll liabilities. They've broken it down by federal, state, and then other payroll liabilities. Most people will come here and look at this chart of accounts, and let's take the state for instance, state payroll liabilities. They'll see that $482.14 is due, so they're going to go back to their home page and click on Write Checks in the banking area. They're going to choose the vendor that they normally pay that to. In this case, it's the EDD, and they're going to say $482.14. And to pay that, they're going to choose their state payroll liabilities. Now when you do that, this window comes up here, and this is a very important window that you want to see. If you're getting this message, you want to pay attention to it. It's telling you that writing checks is not going to help your payroll liabilities, and you actually need to go to the Pay Payroll Liabilities window. For this error to happen, most people are going to have to say cancel and kind of ignore that and ignore what it says, and just save and close their check. So if we go back to our chart of accounts and we look at the state payroll liabilities, we see that it is 0. But if we go back to our home page and go to the lower left-hand side in the Employees section and click on the Payroll Center, we can see that the state, we still have taxes due. If we put a little check mark next to both of those California ones, we can see there's our $482.14. So the payroll module thinks that we haven't actually paid these liabilities. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually adjust these payroll liabilities, but we don't want to affect our general ledger and our chart of accounts because they say 0. They say it's already been paid. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this Related Payment Activities button, and we get this drop down, and we actually want to go to Adjust Payroll Liabilities. Now we want to make sure that the adjustment is for the company because we don't want to affect any employee record. If we click employee and we adjust an employee's record, even though we are adjusting taxes that were deducted from employees' checks, we don't want to actually have that effect on their checks, and that will show up in our quarterly payroll reports and our year-end payroll reports like W-2s. We don't want to do that. We just want to take the liability out of the payroll center. So that's why we're going to say company. Now we want to choose all of the taxes and liabilities that we paid from our drop down, and that's all of our state taxes that we paid. So the California withholding, the California disability, the unemployment, and the employment training tax. Now when we wrote that check in that Write Checks field, we didn't break it down by any of these. So in order to adjust that, we're going to actually go back to our payroll center and take a look at the breakdown of that. And these blue links here, if you float your mouse over that, you see we actually get a pointer that means that there's a link. If we click on that $395.10, we can actually see the breakdown, what makes up that $395.10 number. So in this case, we can get the breakdown that $67.86 is disability, and if we scroll down, the rest, the $327, is California withholding. We can say OK. Actually, if we click on any of these, we can actually go to that paycheck if we have a question. We're going to say OK. And we're going to look at the same thing here for the employment training tax. We want to see what that breakdown is. So the unemployment, the total unemployment, is $86.68. And employment training tax is 36 cents. So those are the numbers that we want to adjust on. So we're going to say OK and go back to our liability adjustment. So our California withholding, and we actually want to make sure we put a minus sign here, is the 327.24 because we're reducing the liability. And if we click down to the next line, the disability was that 67.86, and we want to make sure we have that minus. The unemployment was a minus 86.68, and the ETT is a minus 36 cents. So that's our total adjustment. And we can put in the memos here, adjustment for check written to EDD. And we can actually highlight that and copy and paste that into our other lines as well. So that if we look at a report on any one of those items, we can see what we've done here. Now this next step is pretty important. We want to select this Accounts Affected button, which is in the right-hand side. And the default is that this adjustment will actually affect the liability and expense accounts. If we do that, then we're going to show up a negative on our chart of accounts. We want to say we do not want to affect any accounts. We've already paid it on the chart of accounts. It's affected in our general ledger, so we don't need to do that with this adjustment. We are just literally reducing the liability in the payroll module. So we're going to say OK, and then say OK again. So now notice when we say OK and that our Adjust Liabilities window has disappeared, you can see on our Scheduled Liabilities window the state taxes are gone. They're no longer due. If we go back to our chart of accounts, the state payroll liabilities still say 0 because we chose not to affect our items on our chart of accounts. So now that we know what we've done wrong, how we can correct what we've done wrong, let's talk about how we need to do it correctly in the future. So if we go back to our payroll center, one thing that we want to make sure that we have set up is a scheduled liability payment. We want to make sure that it shows up here in this window as the frequency of how we're going to pay it. So if we click on this Related Payment Activities button, we can say Edit Payment Due Dates or Methods. And that's going to take us into the payroll setup for the payroll module. And this is where we're going to set up any other additional due dates or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and close our live community window here so it loads a little quicker. Now when you first set up your payroll and you go through the payroll setup window, you're going to choose for your federal and state payroll taxes the frequency and how you're paying them. In this case, we also have benefits and other payments. And that's usually going to be something like health insurance, 401k. Right now, there is a health insurance being deducted, which on our chart of accounts, remember we had that other payroll liabilities. That's what this is here. So we want to say edit, and we want to tell it how often we pay it. So usually it's going to be something like monthly on the 15th. We can say weekly, however often we're paying it. So once we say finish and we actually tell it when we're paying it, it's going to show us the frequency there. So once we say finish and our payroll setup window loads, now you can see there's our health insurance and there's that 170. And now it's showing up here on our payroll liabilities window. So we're not having to go in and write checks. We can see all of our payroll liabilities that are due right here. So if we flip back to our chart of accounts real quick, we can see other payroll liabilities, 170. So that's exactly what we want to see. So now that it is on our payroll liabilities window, our scheduled liabilities, to pay it, it's just as simple as putting a check marks next to it and saying View Pay. From here we can print a check. We can say the to be printed, and it's going to choose our health insurance items, and we can say Save and Close. We can actually have the option here from our summary window to print the checks. We can print out a summary or we can close it. So that's taken off our payroll scheduled liabilities window, and it's also taken off of our chart of accounts at the same time. And it's just as simple for paying the federal taxes as well. We just check them off and say View Pay, and there they are. So in this case, we have more than one we're paying. We have the option of Save and Next instead of Save and Close. And again, there's our payment summary window. Now we have nothing due at this time since we've paid them all. If we go back to our chart of accounts, our total payroll liabilities is 0. So we're affecting the liabilities in our payroll module and our general ledger and chart of accounts by using that pay scheduled liabilities. It's very important. Do not just go write a check and ignore the pop-up that QuickBooks is telling you not to do that. Thank you for watching. We hope you found our tutorial useful and informative. Your feedback and comments are welcome. Please send us a note to the email address that you see on your screen. And just to let you know, we do offer live seminars, remote login assistance, video conference, group training, one-on-one instruction, and so much more. For more information about these services, visit essential123.com. Thank you.